The topic of today's module is complying with applicable legal, regulatory, and workplace data collection, storage, transportation, and documentation requirements. This module will cover RBT task list item E05, which is part of documentation and reporting. This training program is based on the RBT task list and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for RBT certification. The program is offered independent of the BACB. In this presentation, we will cover the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, also known as FERPA, and the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, also known as HIPAA. This will include what protected health information is, which is also referred to as PHI. We will also cover consent, components of documentation and data collection. Included in this will be the storage of documentation and data, as well as the transportation of documentation and data. At the end of the presentation, references will be provided. First, we will go over FERPA, which again is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. FERPA is federal law that gives parents and eligible students the right to inspect and review the student's education records maintained by the school, as well as the right to request that a school amend the student's education records. These allow the parents and eligible students to have some control of personally identifiable information from the education records. FERPA also allows the parents and eligible students the right to consent in writing to the disclosure of personally identifiable information from a student's education record, except under certain permitted situations, as well as the right to file a complaint with the Family Policy Compliance Office, also referred to as FPCO, regarding an alleged violation under FERPA. FERPA allows schools to disclose these records without consent to the following parties or under the following conditions: school officials with legitimate educational interest, other schools to which a student is transferring, specified officials for audit or evaluation purposes, appropriate parties in connection with financial aid to a student, organizations conducting certain studies for or on behalf of the school, as well as accrediting organizations to comply with a judicial order or lawfully issued subpoena, appropriate officials in cases of health and safety emergencies, and state and local authorities within a juvenile justice system pursuant to specific state law. In regards to FERPA, why should you personally care? Well, you are a student, so these laws are directly relevant to you. You have a legal right to not have your academic information shared unless you authorize it to be shared. You are also working at West Campus. The students you work with at West Campus also have a legal right to not have their educational information shared. Finally, you may work in an educational setting in the future, so it is important to know these laws. On your homework sheet, please fill in the following question. What is FERPA? I'll now give you some time to get that question filled in. On your homework sheet, fill in federal law that affords parents and adult students the right to have access to education records, seek to have the records amended, and have some control of personally identifiable information from the education records. I'll now give you some time to get that filled in. Now we'll move on to the next topic, HIPAA, which again is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. HIPAA is legislation that specifies data privacy and security provisions in order to safeguard medical information. It provides privacy standards to protect patients' medical records and other protected health information, also known as PHI. This means that PHI is stored, transmitted, and received in a safe and secure manner. HIPAA affects nearly all departments and people who have access to PHI. And between HIPAA and state laws, whichever law provides greater protections must be followed. Protected health information is any identifiable information, which could include the person's name, geographical subdivision smaller than a state, dates related to an individual such as birthdays, telephone numbers, email address, social security number, medical record number, health plan beneficiary number, certificate or license number, account number, device identifiers or serial numbers, finger or voice print, web URL, Internet Protocol address or IP address, vehicle identifiers or license plate numbers, images, other characteristics allowing identification, or fax numbers. In regards to HIPAA, why should you personally care? Well, you may work in an autism center. You are a consumer, so you also visit the doctor, the dentist, or pharmacist. And there are penalties for violations. This could include fines and lawsuits, reporting to the Behavior Analysis Certification Board, which could result in the loss of certification. This could also result in the loss of a job. A HIPAA breach involves the acquisition, access, use, or disclosure of protected health information in a manner not permitted which compromises the security or privacy of the protected health information. I will now discuss some common HIPAA violations. This includes discussing student or patient information in front of others, leaving patient or student information accessible to others, as well as using electronic devices that are not encrypted. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question. What is HIPAA? I'll give you some time to write this in. On your homework sheet, please fill in legislation that specifies data privacy and security provisions in order to safeguard medical information. I will now give you some time to fill this in. Now we are going to discuss consent. Consent allows us to share PHI with other people involved in the care of the patient. However, it does not allow us to share information with people not involved in the care of the patient. And it does not allow us to share information that is not relevant to the care of the patient. We must make reasonable effort to limit the scope of the PHI it uses, discloses, or requests to the minimum necessary to accomplish its intended purpose. On your homework sheet, please fill in the following question. Does consent allow us to share information, documentation, client records, or data with individuals not involved in the client's case? I will now give you some time to fill in this question. No, it does not. Consent only allows us to share PHI with other people involved in the care of the patient. This could include the techs working on the case, the BCBA, case managers, or more. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer. No. Now we'll move on to documentation and data collection. Documentation and client records may include data, session notes, or any other documents pertaining to the client. Please remember that any information you provide must be accurate. On your homework sheet, please fill in the following question. Are session notes and client data considered to be part of client documentation? I will now give you some time to fill that in. Yes, session notes and client data are considered to be part of client documentation. Both contain information about the client. On your homework sheet, please fill in yes. Client records may be electronic or hard copies, need to be kept confidentially, may only be released in certain circumstances to those other than the client and/or their surrogate, and all private information should be stored in a locked and secure location. Client's documentation is typically kept at the client's home or in the center the client attends. Before taking any documentation home, you should make sure you get explicit permission from your supervisor. If you have any concerns about data privacy, discuss them with your supervisor. Data may be collected on hard copy datasheets or electronically. You should not take the datasheets home with you. If there are a reason you need them, check with your supervisor first and get explicit permission. You should not access the electronic data outside of sessions. Remember client privacy and protection of their PHI. On your homework sheet, please fill in the following question. Should you ever remove your client's data from the center the client attends or the client's home without your supervisor's permission? I will now give you some time to fill that question in. No, you should never remove your client's data from the center that they attend or from the home without your supervisor's permission. There are rarely times when you should take your client's data out of the center or the client's home. And if there is an occasion where you need to take the data, check with your supervisor and gain explicit permission. On your homework sheet, please write in the answer no. Now we will discuss traveling with data. This may occur if you provide in-home services. Keep in mind confidentiality laws. Carry only the data and documents that you need. Keep documents out of sight, such as in a folder, in a binder, in a bag, and keep these documents locked in a briefcase and stored in the trunk. There may also be regulations that are specific for your location and your workplace. Now let's discuss a HIPAA case study. A technician finished working with their client. It was a long day, so they drove straight home and went to bed. They accidentally left their work stuff in their car overnight, including their student's binder, which has their name, diagnosis, address, and other identifying information. Overnight, someone broke into their car and stole practically everything, including the binder. Was that a HIPAA violation? Yes. The technician did not safely store their materials and compromised their client's confidentiality. What should have been done? The technician should never leave materials with PHI out where it can be seen or stolen. The materials should have remained at the client's home or taken inside and stored properly. Many companies store records electronically. If you have PHI on your personal computer, access to your computer should be limited. Your computer should be password protected, and documents should also be password protected. Don't have PHI open on your computer in an open area where others could walk by and see. Pay attention to where you are if you have PHI open on your computer, such as avoid sitting in front of windows. If you walk away from your computer, you should close the documents and log out so that others cannot access that information. Now we'll move on to an electronic case study. A technician is sitting at the library looking over an email that their BCBA sent them that has the client's PHI on it. The email was encrypted, and whenever the technician leaves his computer, he makes sure he closes his laptop. Was there a HIPAA violation? Not necessarily. The technician and BCBA took many preventative steps. The BCBA used an encrypted email, and the technician closed his laptop. However, the technician should ensure that no one behind him can see his computer. This can be done by sitting in a corner and avoiding sitting near windows. Communication can occur through a variety of forms. This could include electronic communication, which would be texting, emailing, social media, and phone calls. Though note, in each of these circumstances, you should always protect your client's privacy, and especially with social media, you should never post any of your client's protected health information. Other forms of communication would be discussing orally with someone at the center, discussing orally with someone at the client's home, discussing orally with someone in public, as well as paperwork, data sheets, session notes, and other documentation. Again, pay attention to your client's privacy, and all communication must be accurate and appropriate. Now let's review session notes as they are a part of client documentation. You should report the variables we discussed previously in your session notes. Session notes should be as objective and as detailed as possible. With illnesses, you should identify any illnesses and their effects on the client from your session. If a session is cut short or canceled due to illness, it should be noted as well. Medications should be discussed with your supervisor. No mention of diagnoses should be made in session notes, but side effects should be noted if they interfere with your programming. If it is known that a child had issues with sleep and it interfered with your programming, it should be included in your session notes. Any instances where family members interfered with programming should also be noted. Again, you should inform your supervisor if the issue persists and allow them to resolve the issue. Diagnoses such as depression should not be mentioned in session notes. However, keep objective, detailed records of any behaviors that are occurring. Most autism companies will have a code that you use that represents a specific individual. This may be numbers, or it may be initials. At West Campus, for homework and communication, we have you use your students' first initial or their first two initials. That way we can protect their privacy. Client data must be kept for a minimum of 7 years, which is the responsibility of the supervisor. Some states may require it to be kept longer. Most notably, do not discard client data or documentation. If you have documents that you no longer need, such as blank data sheets or programs that weren't or are no longer being used, check with your supervisor to see if you can get rid of them. If they have any identifying information or PHI, you must discard them properly, such as shredding. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question. You ran a program incorrectly, which you noticed after having taken data for half of the session. Is it okay to throw the data sheet away and restart? I will now give you some time to fill that question in. No, you should never throw away data. If you took data on a program you ran incorrectly, invalidate that data and notify your supervisor. This is important because we don't want inaccurate data involved in the data analysis and decision-making progress. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer no. Now we're going to discuss ways to protect clients' privacy. Avoid using identifying information whenever possible. Use client initials or a code corresponding to that client. This is relevant for homework and emails. Do not talk about your client with those not directly involved in your client's case. Make sure any electronic devices that have PHI are encrypted. Additional ways to protect your client's privacy would include changing notification settings for texts and emails, being aware of your surroundings, avoiding oversharing of information, and not posting about your child on social media. This would include the pictures that we give you at the end of the semester. Those are your personal keepsake. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question. You complete your session notes at the end of your session in your client's home. Does this comply with EO5? I will now give you some time to fill that in. Yes, this complies with what we have been discussing so far because you are completing the session notes in a private location where you can then store them. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer. Yes. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question. You complete your session notes at Starbucks after your session. Does this comply with EO5? I will now give you some time to fill in that question. No. You are not complying with EO5 by completing the notes in a public location where others could see. This goes against applicable legal, regulatory, and workplace storage, transportation, and documentation requirements. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer. No. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question. Jane and Ryan work with the same child. After Jane's session, she gives her iPad to Ryan to continue taking data on Jane's account. Does this comply with EO5? I will now give you some time to fill in that question. No. Ryan's data would be recorded under Jane's name, which goes against legal and workplace data collection. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer. No. On your homework sheet, fill in the following question. Sarah is running late to the center where she works. She puts her bag in her passenger seat, which contains her notebook where she writes down questions about her clients for her BCBA. Does this comply with EO5? I will now give you some time to write down that question. No. Client documentation should be properly stored and locked away in a safe location, such as a locked briefcase in a locked trunk. On your homework sheet, fill in the following answer. No. Here is a list of some of the references that we used. This concludes the module on EO5, which is complying with applicable legal, regulatory, and workplace data collection, storage, transportation, and documentation requirements.